Here we go again, man. Resilient.
Back. Resilient.
Right at it.
Or consistent. It is March 14th, the year 2023. Welcome aboard, everybody. You're listening to the Crushing Iron podcast. Happily, episode 667.
Yep. We're resilient. We keep coming back, but we don't get in over our head, man.
Yeah, well, we at least try not to. It is I'm in Nashville. It's a gloomy, disgusting day. It is cold. It is dreary, but it's spring break, and we're trying to live our best life. Well, actually, we're not. We're trying to let Hayden live his best life this week. Hope everyone is enjoying themselves, getting ready for March Madness. One of my favorite weeks of the year. Everybody cheers for teams that they don't know because you fill out a bracket. And it gives everybody hope, gives everybody time to focus. I think what they said, like Thursday and Friday of this week are like the least productive work days in the year. No one works.
Yeah.
They just, I mean, we're moving we're making sure our podcasts flow in line with that. But it's fun. It's fun to cheer. It's fun to be excited. If your team isn't in it, you're at least going to follow it because it's awesome. Like everybody cheers for the underdogs. Everybody fills out a bracket for teams you don't know. And the best person, or the person that wins the bracket in your pool usually knows the least amount about basketball because they just go with like, oh, I like Bulldogs over Ravens. I'm going to pick the Bulldogs. Or I like that team's colors of it because there's no rhyme or reason because it's chaos. And that's why we love it. As much as we like predictability, we cheer for the underdogs. We love the upsets and we love watching kids play a game that they love.
Yeah.
And that's to me, that's like one of the best parts about March Madness is just watching kids play something. And yeah, I know some of them get paid now and whatever, but you can genuinely see the difference in kids playing a game and how much they absolutely love it. And you can see that on some professionals, but it's just different. And I think that's why forever this way is college sports are like the pinnacle of sports, in my opinion, is because you do it for the love of it. You do it because you love it. You love your team. You love the energy. You love what it does for you. And I think that's why everybody's so driven to watch. Not everyone, but the people who do get into March Madness, it's not just because even if, I'll watch Tennessee and even when they lose, I'll still watch it because it's just awesome. It's the great stories, great comebacks. You get to hear about teams that, don't, shouldn't be there or coaches that, it's awesome. It's got great stories. It's an exciting time of year. So I know it's not for everyone, but it is definitely for me. So I will thoroughly enjoy later this week and watching the games and soaking it in.
Well, I'm glad you will. I'm gonna like Aaron Rodgers. I'm going on a dark out this week.
Yeah, you're going to.
I'm gonna go to Sweat Lodge and bemoan the fact that my Badgers aren't in for like the second time in 25 years, and just see if I can come to terms with who I am.
Well, if there's anybody that can do it, it's you. I got total faith that you can do it.
Yeah,
and we have faith in all. Yeah, I got faith in you, and I got faith in all of our listeners. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have quite a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general terms are very valuable, so we appreciate you tuning in today. We cover it all. We do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We do race recaps and also a lot of race previews. But for the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, we just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through in life, not just as human beings on this planet, but also as coaches and athletes ourselves. We also talk frequently about what our own athletes are going through. Mike and I work with a very wide range of athletes all across the globe, from beginner-level triathletes looking at the very first 5K or sprint triathlon, all the way up through elite-level amateurs trying to get back to the World Championships and everyone in between from all over the globe. And we use the feedback loop we have with them in training peaks, emails, text messages, and the like to drive the discussion today. We also frequently utilize our Facebook group. You can search that, Crushing Iron Group. Answer one simple question and let you right in. Awesome people, fantastic resource, amazing community. So in a sport that is oftentimes confusing, overwhelming, conflicting as well, it is a great place to get information that is quality from a great group of people. Again, that have won Ironman championships, that have never done a triathlon, and everyone in between. And for the most part, it's just people like you and I. So they know what to recommend. They're not going to recommend the 35-hour training week to get you back in the groove. they're going to recommend or give you suggestions that make sense because we all got life. We all got stuff going on. So it's a great community again. Again, that's on Facebook, Crushing Iron Group. But that's it. We don't do sponsors either. We most certainly don't do ads, but we do have one agenda, and that is a very important one to us, and that's to do our best to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
Yes, we do. And we also have another agenda, which is to keep your hair dry in the swimming pool with our new swim caps, which should be up on the website tonight as you listen to this. Yeah, new swim caps are in. We got beanies, crazy beanies, and we're going to do some kind of a combo deal with that. But anyway, that's a short way to get into. Check out our website for the C26 gear that's been very popular around the world over the last several years.
We have a global brand.
Global brand, yeah, we do.
we have a global brand, but no, we don't do sponsors or ads, but we do have an opportunity to support us to keep this. Well, let's be honest, we're always going to be ad free, but it is people always ask about ways to support us, and that's it. Go to the website, click on the online hub, and buy some gear, buy some swag. That's the best way to support us, and you also go to your favorite podcast platform or whatever that is, and give us a solid review. Spread the love, spread the cheer as we get into March, and we're just about 3.5 weeks away from what is considered by most accounts the actual start of the North American race calendar with Oceanside 70.3. We got an athlete doing Puerto Rico 70.3 this weekend. It's on, and that start list is pretty awesome in Oceanside at least, and then you got Texas 70.3. The season is upon us. It is here. It is kind of as most years as most seasons go. I always like to say the days are slow, but the weeks fly by, and the months I feel like have flown so far this year. But we got a great topic today. We started out precast by I was talking about a Zoom call I did over the weekend. Putting in the hours on a Sunday for some athletes going through some testing and different software that I've been experimenting with. And I got into kind of going down one of my usual rabbit holes when I'm talking about intensity and intensity distribution and, the cost to value ratio on how much you're spending, right? Energy wise and interval wise, and what you might get out of 6 minutes versus 30 minutes and how that lays out into a week. And then we got to talking after that about a quote you were reading from a book, and we talk a lot about in this podcast specifically about not getting too high, not getting too low, right? Staying in the gray, not being too black, not being too white, and we also talk a lot about being resilient and how that is a great trait to have. But on the flip side of it, it is not something you want to live daily. And, you and I talk a lot about the athletes that we work with before the air and how hard life seems. And I mentioned this in a roundabout way in our closed active athlete group on Facebook. Every Monday when I go through training peaks and go back kind of through the weekend and the athletes fill out a summary, I've got a little spiral notebook next to me, and I've got these, I've got a T check column and a W check column. And the T check means training check. So it's just basically if I scroll through and I see Mike Tarrolly and his run was long or his run was short or something happened and I think he needs the week edited, they already made, I'll write down, Mike Tarrolly, so I go back in later on that afternoon and make some edits. And I've got a W check column, which is well check, which means just what you think it means, which means it's like your version of going to someone's house and knocking on the door, right? You don't hear from them. You don't know what's going on. You're concerned. It's for the emotional and mental check-in. So, if I see, Robbie Bruce on there, I'm like, I'm not sure what's going on. I know he's struggling. Put him down. Make sure you go back and kind of, dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure things are okay, or do your best to do that. And I mentioned this in the Facebook group is I started doing this in 2018, I think. And this is the 11th week in a row that the W check, so the well check list, has been longer than the T check. And that obviously, goes through 2020, 2021. People thought that was like the hardest time, in life. And we talk a lot about stress, and we even talked about managing stress and how you can use training to assist it, right? To help you manage stress. how intensities can help you, bury yourself and work through emotions or not have to think through things, but then also how you can dig yourself a hole. And I mentioned to an athlete over the weekend, and that's kind of, I think, the topic of the day of while resiliency can be a strength, it doesn't need to be your daily, and how we make choices day to day, where the resiliency is kind of one of those, that big tool in the toolbox that you don't want to have to bring out every day. Like, it's kind of the big gun, right? It's like you don't want to wake up every day and assume that every day I've got to be resilient and I've got to be the strongest I can be every day, because that shit won't last. You're eventually going to crumble. You're eventually going to go back and open that toolbox to bring out, your big resiliency tool, and it's not going to be there because it's not sustainable. And athletes, and I mentioned this to an athlete the other day, I said, your strength is your greatest weakness. And what I meant by that is your strength has been your ability to navigate and accumulate enormous amounts of stress over the last few months and years. That's why you're not just burnt out now, right? Everybody says I'm burnt out. Well, being burnt out is very, very, very similar to becoming an overnight success, right? Is it an overnight success? No. Not even close. It's years in the making for people, right? It's not luck. It's hard work, and it takes time. Well, being burnt out is also not an overnight failure or an overnight feeling. You didn't just wake up and feel it. You've either been in denial about it for weeks, months, maybe even years, right? With your job, with your life, with your relationship, with training, whatever it is. You didn't just wake up and be burnt out. You have let yourself become burnt out. And that's something that you and I talk so frequently about in our professional lives, personal lives, and in training, about being happy, right? And being able to, kind of what you said before we hopped online here, is about just, creating a life where you could just play, right? And play not as in like, free time, but play as in, be offensively aggressive in a life you want to lead, right? And that could mean living your life and changing jobs or changing relationships. We got a great email earlier this week from, a close friend of ours, and how we do talk a lot about triathlon. It's a triathlon podcast, but we also talk a lot about life, because that's the sport in which we all play, whether you like it or not. The majority of the 24 hours of your day is spent on the sport of life. And that's why we have tried so hard since day one. And you were, I think, the driver in that of making sure we didn't just make it about swim, bike, and run, but made it about life, and then how swim, bike, and run can help that. But he said he was looking at changing jobs and went back to, whatever podcast it was we did. And then I, hesitantly enough, because I don't frankly like Jim Harbaugh, but he had a great quote. He said, don't try to out happy. And how, little things like that and the decisions we make can change our life for better or worse. Or, the grass is green on the other side, but it's not grass, it's turf, right? It's fake. And so I think it's a wonderful topic from a training standpoint, but also from a life standpoint, that, that being strong is great. Having, being resilient is awesome, but eventually you're going to break down. And again, that goes with the amount of intensity you do in training, but it also goes the amount of stress you allow to continuously occur in your life.
Yeah. This is one of those issues that's kind of a low-level angst for me at all times. Like, I have this complete desire to play, and that's why the book, I was reading that Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, who created Nike, and there's an opening passage in there about how he got out of college, and he was facing life, and adult life, and he wasn't sure how he wanted to do it. He didn't know what he wanted to do, get married, have kids, like everybody, all this stuff, and the foreword of the book is, like I was telling these, it's like almost worth the price, because it's just this really, especially for people that probably listen to this podcast, because it's all about, he was a runner in college, and he got cut from baseball and it crushed his world, but then he became a runner, and then he like the whole foreword of the book is this, and it's sort of weaved around this run he had after college and trying to decide what he wanted to be and who he wanted to be. And he talks about how when you're a runner, you have to understand, he said, even on a track, there really is no end, even though there's a finish line. It's just like you just don't understand it unless you do it. You just got to keep going, and something good is in there, and why you're doing it, but you can't really explain it a lot of times. And I think we face that a lot with triathlon. Why are you doing that? I don't know, but I know it's right or whatever. You just kind of have, it's sort of like the ultimate faith in a way. And he was talking about this run he was on and how he was just kind of letting his mind go and whatever. And he was just really trying to figure himself out. And then he said, I knew I wanted to have leave a mark on the world. I wanted to win. No, that's not right. I simply didn't want to lose. And then it happened. As my young heart began to thump and my pink lungs expanded like wings of a bird, as the trees turned into greenish blurs, I saw it all before me, exactly what I wanted my life to be. Play. And that's how he took it. I mean, I haven't really gotten too far into the book, but for me, I think that's it. It's like you think back to when you're always happiest, and it's something to do with movement. And, we get into adult life sometimes, and it's like, cubicle life or in the office, sitting around, looking at a screen and really just trying to be, responsible all the time and, making these big decisions that are going to impact everyone's life around you. And it just kind of, it kind of sucks actually in some ways, but, and I always have this, like I take this into training where I keep thinking, man, I don't want training to turn into this, like that thing that we have so much of a burden on our ass, just to kind of like be the best we can ever be or whatever. And like, I just feel like getting to that point a lot of times means you have to really enjoy it, and you have to almost figure out a way to turn it into play. And, you can kind of, go through the motions and just really push and look at the numbers and whatever. But I'm always trying to, that usually comes back to it with me. I was telling my athletes the other day, I was like, if you got 2 workouts and you're feeling overwhelmed, and just maybe pick one of them and extend it and just go in there and splash around in the pool a little bit and kind of feel the water and go a little bit further and take it easy. Go, hitting the sauna, do whatever it takes to kind of start feeling good again, or get into a place where you enjoy it. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I get in the pool and I leave my phone in my locker and I'm like, man, I'm waiting for this, I'm waiting for that. These like quote unquote important texts all the time, or there's just something always on the table. And it's so hard to leave that behind. I joked about Aaron Rodgers going out to the dark out or whatever, but stuff like that, man, like when you can really, it seems so scary and so weird, but the disconnection piece to me is really at the heart of play. You think about when you're a kid and you're out playing all day and you weren't thinking about anything. We were kind of joking about, not joking, but we were talking about how certain teams can be inconsistent and not play well when they're great, and then the next night they're great and whatever. And I was telling you, I saw an inside the locker room shot before a basketball game on Sunday, and the kids were sitting in the lockers, just waiting to play, and they were all on their phones and texting and everything. And it just struck me as such a weird thing, that how in the world can you be preparing for the championship of your conference game and just on there, like, reading Twitter or looking through TikTok or something like that when I guess it's okay to let your mind go or whatever, but to me, it just seems like you could see something that might get in your emotions, and that to me is the ticket there. It's like, what's in your head that won't allow you to play?
And we've talked about this on a couple different podcasts about how we willfully and have this like certain level of acceptance on allowing stress to enter our lives, right? And you see it on every website, every social media outlet you use, everything, any sponsorship or any advertisement or any clickbait is extreme bullshit in a way that it's like grandiose, incredible, like, lose 40 pounds in 3 days, and then you got to click on it, or this horrific thing that happened. That's it. It's all extreme. And then everything else in the middle is stress, right? And how we compare ourselves and we add into our lives, and we look around and we see people and we talk to people, but the truth of the matter is it's not supposed to be like this. It's not. And that's why you see so many insane levels of anxiety and depression and suicide and addiction and all these things, right? Unhappiness. it's become a stand. There's a variety of reasons in reasons of why we got here. And we can all lament and argue and point fingers of how we got here. But the truth of the matter is that we're here.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do from here on out is our choice. Right. And a lot of people don't like to make those choices. We would rather, and that goes with training as well. Like, it isn't just, a life cast, but it also goes with training. Like you overtrain yourself, right? And so you have to take a step back and you're mad because you can't train more. But that's how you got yourself here. Or you're coming back from sickness or injury or time off or being unmotivated, and you're discouraged and you're, I'm nowhere close to where I used to be, or I see how far the road is to getting back and I just don't want to do it. I'm like, the fact of the matter is that you're here. You can obsess about, you can blame, you can complain your way through anything and get nowhere. Or in fact, if you get anywhere, it'll be right back to where you started. Or you overcommitted to a race calendar, right? Had an athlete yesterday who has a demanding life already, and he had what I would consider a fairly aggressive race calendar this year, and sent me an email yesterday. Say, hey man, I don't want to continue to put undue stress on a life that is already stressful enough. So I'm going to defer my entire race calendar to next year. I still want to train, still want to be, I still want to stay fit, still want to get better, but I've already got, married, they got kids, they got a job, they're in a demanding doctoral program, things that would alone, put people through the ringer, and then training and racing and expectations. And I just, it was a big, long email paragraph. And I just, sent him a text and said, support you 100%. I think it's a great idea because it's limiting stress. Right. And so, but what happens is we don't like to take steps back. We don't like to take ownership, and we definitely don't like to change direction. We would rather complain our way through, train our way through the same dead end direction and blame somebody else or blame it on this or keep doing the same mistake over and over again, keep overtraining, keep overcommitting to race, irresponsible race calendars or irresponsible race methods and blame it on this and blame it on that. Then take a look in the mirror and change your fucking course. Change it. People think it's impossible. It is not. And the most people that say, oh, well, it's easier said than done. It is. That's a fact. Everything is easier said than done, just like it's easier to sign up for a race than it is to train to do it. Yet, here we find ourselves. Everything is easier said than done. But the point is to make headway in a direction that you want to be in life, and not to complain and blame your way and to stand stuck into where you already are. And that's what people do now. They blame this side of the aisle. They blame that side of the aisle. They blame this president. They blame this that president. They blame this, religious affiliation. They blame this one. Fact of the matter is we're here. And you have a specific choice each and every day of how to move forward. You can grovel in the complain game of the world and the blame game of the world and be a part of the problem, or you can be a part of your own solution, which is to zone out, drown out the noise, and figure out what the hell it is you really want to do with not just your life, but with your training within that life. Do I really want to do this? Or are you just lying to yourself every day, right? That slow burn out. Not the slow burn for progress, but the slow burn out. That's how you find yourself there. And that's the I hate you, told you so that, I've found myself in as a coach many a times, is, hey, you're not burnt out. You shouldn't have done this. And then we agreed this was a bad idea, but we got to go through it anyway. And the athletes got to learn on their own. And, I know that I don't know that I've listened. I haven't been burnt out in forever in terms of triathlon racing because I haven't raced as much, but you know what I'm still doing? I'm still in it. 20 years, still in the sport, coaching, racing, training, doing camps, still in it. Because there's been many times in life where I've had to make the decision to pull back and just do something different. Because I always have this, when triathlon is your life and it's the podcast that you do and it is your profession. It's something that I love. what I don't want, this is actually I think the exact sentence this athlete used yesterday in this email was, I don't want to hate it. And a lot of times in order to not hate something, you got to do less of it. Because when you put demands on yourself, right, with training, or you do training that's unsustainable and you sign up for too many races and you overcommit, I don't want to waste the money. I don't want to defer. I'm like, waste the money? Like, you're serious? Like the stuff that we spend money on now is like, experiences or Starbucks or Amazon, like, time and energy and happiness, like that stuff you can't put a price tag on. And lowering stress is one of those things that allows so many other aspects of your life to be happy, to do certain things, right? I see athletes do this all the time. They dig themselves into the ground over and over and over and over and over again in training because they go too hard, too often, all the time. And that's what other people put out there in their training, or it's not other people, because if you look at professionals, if you follow any of them on Strava or watching their YouTube videos, like 90% of their training is boring as hell. It's all easy, right? But the average Joe triathlete in the Strava segment, chaser, they're burying themselves every single day, and then you wonder what happened to them, and then why they disappeared. And it's because they were on a slow burnout, and that's where so many athletes find themselves, because we want it now, and we're willing to sacrifice. On a scale of 1 to 10, we're willing to sacrifice a 10 to get a 6 tomorrow, and we're willing to try to skip steps and to do much intensity and to go hard, then and then take the long way to the 9 of the 10 of where you can actually be fitness wise. I said this to an athlete the other day, or I think over the weekend, or maybe it was Monday, who knows, that was talking about this is like some of the happiest run they had been on in a while, regardless of what I said. Listen, if you keep this up, not only will you be performing better than ever, but you'll be happier than ever. Mm-hmm. And so many athletes, again, with their training and what they try to do to themselves, are willing to chase a 6, but get it sooner than getting the 10 later. And that happens with life, right? And in jobs, or I really want this next promotion. I know I don't really like the person I'm going to work for, but it's going to be, a real slight increase, but I want it now. Versus, the door number 2, which is keep doing your thing, keep working hard, and maybe maybe the opportunity is to move 2 levels up, maybe make the same amount of money, but work 20 hours a week less. Right? We get so caught up in yes, we have to provide. If you're married, you have to provide for your spouse, or be part of that provision. If you have kids, you got to provide for your kids. We all have bills and responsibilities, and there's again, everyone wakes up with a baseline level of stress. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of us accumulate more reasons and add more things that create more stress, which makes us do other things that create more stress. And then we wonder why we're unhappy and we're not sleeping and we feel run down, or we're putting on weight, or you don't have enough energy, right? It's like, you going back to, I had this thought on my run today, this morning, and it was, your quote reminded me of it, is about, people that don't run don't know how great it is, how wonderful it is, the feeling that it gives. And I had that feeling today when I ran by somebody, and of course I will say, going back to my good morning rant the other day, just going back, as I ran on the trails in Percy Warner, and I got all good mornings.
Oh yeah, they know.
100%. They're out there, and they drove out to tackle nature, enjoy what nature can do to you, and everyone's good morning, not good. Even got a good to see you. It's like, I'm like, I don't even know you, but hey, good to see you too, man. But I was out running this morning, and I ran by, and I'll be honest, I gave a weak good morning, because I really wasn't expecting anything in return. And eventually, I'm like, good morning.
See,
and they kind of gave me the stink eye, and my first thought was, you know what? I'm not going to hold that against you, because you probably don't know how much fun I'm having right now, and how great it is to be able to run, how awesome the feeling is. I'm like, you obviously don't know, because if you run by a runner who's not running, you can tell, because they're like jealous, like, oh, good morning, or they give you like the nod, like But a person who doesn't run, doesn't want to run, or thinks you're stupid for running, they don't have any idea. Right? They have any idea. Like, you always talk about your friends from college or whatever. They're like, are you still doing that?
Yeah.
It's like, it's hard for people to wrap their brain around the choices that we make that we find that make ourselves happy, right? But the same can be said for the choices that we make to add stress, upon ourselves, and the things that we get from it, or the things that we might get momentarily, when you're in a bad spot where you're mentally and emotionally down, and you use an interval to work through, the grief that you're going through in life and how hard things is. And for those 8 minutes, it allows you to release, right? It allows you to kind of get things out and to not feel things on a level that's so hurtful, but to be in charge of the hurt, right? But then the repercussion and the cost from that is that tomorrow you might not have that opportunity, right? Because I generally think we take for granted the opportunity to use training to deal with life. I firmly believe we do. I mean, I've seen it save people's lives, and I know that when it's been taken away, it has put people in really, really bad spots because they can't run, or they can't ride, or they can't go to the pool. And we saw that. Hello, 2020, 2021, like when people had opportunities removed. You can't go to the gym, but we can sure as fuck go to the liquor store, right? And you saw what happened to people. They're still seeing it. And the people we do, I think we generally take for granted, and we should all remind ourselves, when we step out the door for our run, your GPS is, you're staring at your Garmin waiting for GPS to, pick up signal, or you're sitting on the side of the pool debating on getting in because it might be too cold, or you're forcing yourself to get on your bike or doing this, is to take a minute and remind yourself, like, man, like, I don't want to take for granted the opportunity that I have to do this as a method to work through life. And to be better, right? To feel better, to be happier, to work through my feelings. Because at some point, that'll be taken away, either voluntarily or involuntarily, right? From injuries or old age or financially or burnout. And you have to embrace and truly appreciate that, the opportunity that we have. And I think we take it for granted sometimes because we're looking for things to complain about, or looking for things to dismiss about our run, right? Like, it wasn't that good, or or my ride wasn't that great, or I wish I was this. I'm like, do you understand what you just were able to do, right? Or allowed to do, or what our body allows us to do? And if you want to appreciate that and be grateful for it and see it do and continue to do greater and greater things, and continue to deal with life's obstacles and trials, is you got to treat it like the body you want to be around, right? You can't you can't stuff it full of crap. You can't manage off 5 hours of sleep. You can't have one glass of water a month, right? All the stuff that, like, I'm busy grinding away. Grinding, when you hear the word grind, I hear nothing positive. Everybody uses the phrase grind. I seriously don't. When you think about anything grinding, something is losing something. You grind two things against one another. The friction causes destruction. That's what grinding is. So people always say, I'm grinding away. I'm like, that sounds fucking terrible. Why do you want to grind? Why do you want to lose something every day? Why not gain something every day, right? By choosing things to do and not driving yourself on the ground with added intensity and added stress. And even in the moment, you got to show restraint, right? Restraining yourself. And we talked about this last week. I had to get on to an athlete about going over some of the ranges, that they were given, and during the week. I said, be careful here. I'm just going to, because a lot of times you got to let athletes learn their own lesson. And I just said, be careful here. I know it feels great this week, but it's not about what feels great this week. It's what feels appropriate next week, and what won't be too hard in 3 weeks. I said, okay, what happened today? Heart rate's a little bit higher for the same. I don't really know what's going on. I'm like, I can tell you what's going on. Circle back to last Tuesday and Thursday when you overwent it. Now here we are. But showing restraint in those good times, it's hard to refrain, right? And to be like, I know it feels good, but it feels good enough, right? And trying to out happy is like, you got to think about what you're going to do next week and have the opportunities to do things next week. And then, it's an avalanche one way or the other, right? Of good things or obstacles or negative things or challenging things or positive things. But you can create it. Yes, 100%. It's easier said than done. Everything in life is easier said than done. Period. That's not an excuse. but people use it, right? Action is very, 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 very difficult. Everybody finds that out after they sign up for a race. It's a hell of a lot harder to get up and train for now, right? But you have the opportunity to make those, and I challenge you to be aggressive in those moves. I mean, you do it, I do it, and that people probably think that's not really the coach's job, but I tell people every week to either remove or take a different direction in their life. If you don't like your job, find something else. Well, it's easier said than really. It wasn't like it was easy. It's not easy, but your life isn't easy. It isn't easy already. So it's like, what kind of challenge are you willing to take on? But we're so terrified, and when the more terrified you get, the more paralyzed you become. And then the longer you stay paralyzed in that fear and that anxiety and that unknown, right? The longer and longer and longer you're frozen in this life of being fine, right? Then doing things that make you happy, making moves, challenging yourself, and growing, and eventually you have to just step out and take that shot, because the complaining about it, the bemoaning about it, if you're doing all these things, you're not taking a specific, calculated action in the opposite direction, then you get no sympathy. I know that sounds harsh, but if you're just allowing it to happen over and over and over and over, and you are that person over and over and over again, it's hard to have sympathy because you're allowing it. So you can't be the whipping boy anymore. You can't be the person that's not getting this or getting that, or always the one that has the bad luck. I'm like, then step up and step out and take charge and do something different and find something different, because at some point it becomes our own fault. I've been there. You've been there. It's our own fault. And so you can either take calculated, actionable, moves to do something different, or eventually it's going to stay the same. And that's up to us. And yeah, again, it's easier said than done, but for a lot of people, it's got to be done.
It's got to be done for sure. I think we forget a lot. I think we're just that way. I think we're so distracted these days that we forget. When I say that, we always point to, like if I had a bad workout today, it was because I slept bad last night. But I personally think whether it's diet or sleep or habits or what we did in training, it's like 3 days ago, 2 days ago. Those are the things that kind of show up, and we're always trying to, like I've had my best Ironman on 3 hours of sleep. You know what I mean? So it's like we can do that. Our bodies are very resilient like that. But I think what happens is, on Monday, we decided to go do something crazy after a long weekend, and then took an easier day on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, for some reason, we're tired. And we're like, damn, I shouldn't be tired. I ate good yesterday, but I ate crappy all weekend and Monday, and I overdid it and whatever. And I think those are the things that's one of the reasons why I'm a fan of journaling and writing and stuff, and kind of like just rehashing things in your brain, because it's so easy to get kind of stuck in the moment. And if we're going to be moving on, like, me well enough to know that I've never had a problem pulling back, like.
No, it is a skill. It is a skill you have mastered.
Yeah. And, I remember when we first started training and everything, I just kind of would be like every once in a while, yeah, I know what you guys are doing that, but I'm not doing it. It's just, and I, as, kind of still as a coach, I try to embed that in people, because I think about things like, okay, we've been training all year, and, I certainly feel like, yeah, you have to do that. But I think more importantly, the idea of having fun with it and feeling good most of the time, rather than, I'm not talking about feeling good like 2 days of the week. I'm talking about maybe you always talk about, if you want to get good at swimming, you need to swim more than you don't. And I think if you want to be, satisfied and happy in the sport, you have to be feeling good more days than you aren't. because then you're just digging a hole, right? If you're always just trying to nail every single workout, even when you don't want to, that kind of stuff adds up. And I said 3 days. Well, maybe it's 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago that was just digging the hole. And this is another thing I wrote to my athletes the other day. Is like, this will be my 10th Ironman in basically 10 years, other than the year that everything got canceled. And that's a lot for a guy like me. I'm not, the purist on the scale as far as lifestyle and, everything like that. I'm not always a great eater, and I stay up late, and so I have to watch that. And I just have had this sense over the last 3 or 4 years that it's been kind of, it's always on the verge of catching up with me. And, so, that's why last year even, I was trying to get into training and I was like, man, this feels like too much. So I had to kind of err on the side of caution. And I kind of do that a lot. And I know that that's not, right up type A people's alley, but sometimes I'll get out of the pool when I feel good. And even though I know I could swim another 1,000, or sometimes I'll stop on the treadmill or on my run and go back, it's just like, all right, I feel good here. I'm right on the edge of tipping this over. And I don't think that running an extra mile or 2 right now is going to make much of a difference if I feel like shit the next few days, especially, even in an Ironman. And I kind of think about, like, we always talk about, a lot of times the people that need to run, the distance before they do Ironman or something like that. And in my mind, because I've seen it firsthand, I'm talking about for myself, I've competed in many Ironman, not running more than 13 miles, 14 miles or something like that. Not the, top of the scale, but I think we overestimate, it's like is it working hard or working smart, I think it just applies. There's certain things that I'm doing during training that I know are going to pay off, and there's certain things in training that I know are going to not pay off. And I always try to keep my eye on those sorts of things. And I think this obsession with, like, always doing more isn't always necessarily right. Like if you can do it, I think you just it has to take up a big bucket in your life if you're going to do it that way. You know what I mean? You're going to have to sacrifice other things, because eventually it just catches up over time. And you said you've been around the sport for 20 years, and it's not by training for Ironman every season. That would have been a quick exit, I think, at some point. So it's just a fine line. And I don't know. I think it's one of the, I thought of something way back in that, what you were saying last time about how your athlete decided to bag the race season and just train. And I think that's great. And I also think it's one of those things, I think it was Goggins who said it, I never train for anything. I'm just always ready, And I think in his case, I think it was he, it could be something where he's training, he feels good, and he sees a race, it's open 2 weeks from now. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go have fun. It doesn't have to be all or nothing either. It can, you know what I mean? It's like we decide early on that we're going to go race, like sign up in December for a September race the next year. And then that becomes everything. Well, it doesn't have to be everything. It doesn't have to be like that. We can just kind of train and have fun with it and stay consistent and enjoy it. And that, like you said, man, I think you're going to get better if you take that approach rather than looking at it as the end to the means, or whatever that saying is. It's like everything comes down to this.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in my success in life is going to be judged on how I do on September 8th.
Yeah.
It's like, what a strain, man.
I know. It's an incredible strain. And, there's a couple of things that I took from that. As one, like you're talking about, I've been doing this for 20 years. And there have been some seasons where I didn't race, some seasons where I raced a ton, some seasons where I raced once. But there's never been a point in the last 20 years where I haven't been 8 to 10 weeks out from a really solid 70.3. Like I've stayed in that.
Yeah.
I've stayed in that level of shape. I've never been so burnt out that I stopped it all. for a long period of time. I've always been in striking distance, and I'm okay with that because I'm still fit, right? Because honestly, I mean, I've worked with a lot of athletes in the last, 10, 12 years, that go in and out of the sport and that yo-yo back and forth, and then they come back and they're like, I gotta work my way back to the top, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, it's priceless to just be able to stick around, and because it's still there, and you're fit and you're healthy and you're engaged, and you said something else about going, there's I think it was Jack Daniels, or maybe it was Arthur Lynyard, to like the godfathers of running and run coaching, and one of my favorite quotes, and I've used it a lot this last week, is don't leave your race in training.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
And so many athletes do that. They leave their race in training. They train too hard. They dig too much of a hole. They find themselves overstressed, overcommitted, but too many hours. They just want to get the training, and they want to prove themselves. They got to go the distance. They got to go this, and they got to go that, and then they wonder why their race is slower than their training, because you left it there. You 100% left it there. And we do the same thing in life. Like, we wonder where, our life went, but it was, our life was, dissipated or disappeared or never happened, or the life that you wanted, because you were too focused on doing all the wrong things at the wrong time, or doing nothing in general. And so you made no progress. You made no headway. And there's a quick, I think there's a quick answer for everyone, is to go through, a 2 or 3 week, training cycle. And if at any point you feel stressed to get something in, it's a bad sign. I'm not saying it's time to reinvent the wheel in the training program, but it should be one of those light bulb moments, or kind of one of those peaks in the room of like, all right, why? Now, I've asked myself this time and time and time again in the last 5 years, as work and life has progressed and grown, and then try to put it all together and do this, and then especially like the last year or two, like the moment I feel stressed trying to pack it all in, I usually just set it back to the side. I still train, still doing. I mean, I ran 36 miles last week. I still train, I still do stuff, but it's when I look at my life as a whole, and it already has stress that everybody has. Am I limiting, or am I limiting stress by taking away and removing some, by using training as an outlet? Or am I taking on too much training, and the anxiety or the pressure that I put on myself to make time for extra this and extra that stress actually cancels out the stress I'm trying to dissipate, right? So enough training is enough, right? You like that term, like that phrase, don't try to out happy, right? It's like the same thing goes with training sometimes, is 7 hours, 6 hours, 5 hours might be the perfect amount for you, because it allows you to remove stress, handle stress, be fitter, be happier, do what you want. Then you might think, oh, well, 5 hours is great, 7 hours is better. But then you find yourself waking up and you're looking at your calendar, you're looking at your schedule, the commitments you have, and you're thinking, oh, how am I going to get this in? And so you stress doing things you normally wouldn't be stressed about, because you're worried about getting it in later, or during this time, or making it to the pool on time, or doing this and doing that, or, got to train for this Ironman. I don't have time for this. I really wish I was doing a 70.3. Never doing this. So you've added hours. And so now you're no longer removing stress. You're adding to it. And so I think we all have that, if you look at a seesaw, right? That middle part where it goes left, it tilts all the way right. We have that like medium, right? Like where it's balanced on both sides, but any more weight to the right, any more weight to the left, it starts to fall, or it starts to go up. And that is the balance of stress and life and training. And a lot of athletes, especially, very, type A, overcommitted, self-coached athletes who always think more and more and more and more is better. What they don't see and don't feel is that they're overstressing an already stressful life, and that is a recipe for disaster. And so it's one of those things where if you find yourself stressing about it, ask yourself why, and ask yourself, is that okay? Would you, under any other circumstances, would you, willfully allow extra stress into your life? No. Then why are you doing it now? Right? 40 minutes is better than 60 sometimes, right? Because if you need that extra 20 minutes, then take it. And so but it's hard, right? For athletes, they feel like a failure because in society we've been taught, in sport we've been taught, that more is better and the grind is better and I'll sleep when I die, or whatever it is. And you see, I see this all the time. You walk through, you work in a co-work space, so do I. Every time I walk through, and there's like 5, 6, 7 conference rooms, right? They work in long hours. They're in there when I get there. They're there when I leave. They're on the dry erase board. They're grinding away at the newest project, fueling with fucking donuts.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'm like, what? How is this like? And I know it might sound trivial, but it's not. It's the perfect example of burning the wick and fueling with water. Nothing. You're doing the opposite to fan the flame. You're putting it out, right? You're going to feel horrible tomorrow, right? Your work productivity is going to be down, but that's what it is. It's fast food lunches and it's donuts and it's coffee at 6 p.m. to stay up later to work harder. And then you put out nothing the next day. You're spitting out fumes. And that's what we do. And that's what people do in training, is they just slowly, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, you're slowly burning yourself out. And then the amount of time it takes to get out of that hole is significant. So the bigger the hole, the longer it takes yourself to get out of. It takes time and investment and patience to do that. And so you just always need to ask yourself, teetering on that. I used this example last year talking to a really, really accomplished age group athlete that I'm close with. And I said, I get it. And I respect how motivated you are to get back to where you were before. But I'll just tell you right now, I know you're doing 28 hours a week of training, but only 18 hours of that is training. The rest is just added exercise and stress because you can't handle it. And then they scaled it down. They went back to minimal, and it's been great. And it's a hard balance in the world we've been wired in, where everywhere you look is more and more and more, and this and this and this. There's there's a peace in simplicity, right? In that freedom, in that not knowing, any better, and not knowing that there's other things out there, that are going to be stressful, and you can just do things for the love of it, and that all of it is gonna reduce stress, before you have stress. And I tell parents this all the time. When I know they've got kids and I know they've got kids in sport and they're real hard, and it's like, what would you be telling your kid right now? Their game was okay and it just wasn't good enough. Maybe they'll do better next time. No, it's not you, fucking parent. Right? Did you have fun? Yes. Did you work hard? Yes. Bye. See you later. That's it. That is 100% it. Did you have fun? Did you put forth effort? Yes. That's it. Because that is what cultivates a love for a sport or a love for what you do. Not continuous expectations and comparison and stress, because what stress becomes pressure. Like to be honest, I'm not terrified, but I am so worried about the day that comes when Hayden, like, cause he's so in love with hockey right now, where he starts to feel that pressure of being better or making a specific team. Because right now like yesterday, we're obviously on spring break, and he wanted to go to open stick and puck time out at the Ford Ice Center in Bellevue. And I was like, I'll take you. Allie's sick. And I was like, yeah, I'll go out there. We'll go out there and do it. And look out there 20 minutes before it's time to go. He's got his bag packed. He's got a stick. He's just sitting outside my mom's house. I walked out there and I was like, dude, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just ready to get on the ice, Dad. And I was like, I love that. And he goes out there and he's running around the ice, doing his thing. And there's no, I wish I could do this better. There's no this, there's no that. It's just like total fun. It is 100% his happy place. And I'll share this quick story with you guys. We're getting off the ice, and if you know anything about hockey and all the freaking gear you got to put on your kid, it takes forever. And we always talk about having like a childlike love for what we do even as adults, and how that's why it's so great to watch kids do things, because it's just love. It's because they love doing it. They don't hop on Strava. They don't surf online to see what other 6-year-olds are doing across the globe and wondering why they're not good enough. And we get out there, and he wants to take all of his gear off on his own, which my first thought was, we're going to be here till June, because that's when it's going to take you to get your shit off. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yeah. He's like, I got it. And usually I'm helping him with, Allie and I helping him get all the stuff off, and it's a whole production, and we don't have anywhere to go, but I'm still like, all right, fine. But then I'm like, why are you in a hurry? Like, who gives a shit? But anyway, I said, well, why are you so committed to doing this right now? Like, normally you want help. Why all of a sudden do you want to do this on your own? He said, well, in the NHL, you only get 20 minutes in between periods. So if I want to be in the NHL, I need to start practicing now to get all my gear off and get it all back on in 20 minutes, or I'm not going to make it back on the ice. And he was dead serious. And honestly, it was one of my favorite moments I've ever had with him as a father, because he was totally serious. But it was that little thing that he thought about, the chances of him being an NHL player, 0.1%. But that's the dream he's living off of. And I was like, and honestly, I was so jealous. I was like, man, to go back, right? To know what you know now as an adult, to go back and to have that love and that passion for something, and to have that that naive belief of, being in your backyard and playing hoops and, taking the turnaround jumper, which every kid who loves basketball is going to be doing this week, right? They're going to be out in their yard. If you drive by, give them a good honk and a thumbs up, out in their backyard. They're going to, take, whatever their favorite college team is, they're going to count down 3, 2, 1, and then drain it. And the crowd goes. Those are like the best times for a kid in sports, because the sky's the limit. They see no restrictions. They see no pressure. They see no negatives. They see no comparison. All they see is fun and hope and love. And somewhere along the lines, even as adults, when we do this for as a hobby, right, we have it ass backwards in how we see it. And he said that, and I was like, God, I'm so jealous of where you are right now.
Yeah.
with love it. It's just, I envy that. And as much as I don't know the other, it's hard to get back as a parent and as an adult, but that's what we should strive for, is to have that love for it, and all we see is good to come out of it and not negative.
Yep. Well, I did have one thought on that, because it just is right up my alley. When kids are out playing, and you tell them to come in, you got to go to bed or whatever, they always are upset by that, because they just love what they're doing. They're just having so much fun, right? And as we do this triathlon stuff, and you mentioned, when you have people in your life that are always like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing that? Or whatever. And, we always kind of struggle to find a reason, but I think the reason is pretty simple. It's because it feels good. It's like, it feels good for us. We enjoy it. And that's the kind of struggle sometimes that we face, is that, if it's not feeling good, you might want to adjust something, because movement is medicine, and we love to do, our body is never really happier, I think, than when it's in motion, and there's something great about that, so, but, we get caught up in these group text threads, and they're all just like, blah, 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 all this stuff. And it's just so annoying, but when we get out and we're just doing something on our own and making it feel good, that's all that matters. And, I've always had this philosophy. I want to look forward to what I'm doing tomorrow in training. And if I'm not there, I'm screwing it up somewhere. So that could be, and a lot of times that's, after a maybe a week off, or, you know, I got in a bad rut. I didn't do anything. And then it's like Monday, I'm going to go prove that I got it or whatever. And you end up going too far. So, you know, I'm kind of in one of those. Yeah. And yesterday I just went and did like some simple stuff, and I pulled back, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to leave it there. And I felt great. And I was like, all right, now I'm kind of pumped about doing something today. I think that's what it's at, man. It's just like, feel good. Like you said it before. I think if you're not enjoying running, you're probably running too fast or too hard. Just pull it back.
You nailed it. I mean, that is, and we can wrap it up there. I mean, that is the feeling I think that we all get when we are in the best place with training, is that when we have to stop a swim, or we're outdoor riding and it's just that perfect day, or it's that, you know, your first spring day when you're in shorts and a t-shirt and you're outside running, is like when we have to stop, it's like being called in by your parents at night, right? It's like, you got to come in there like, oh, right? You got to get back to life, right? You got to do homework. You got to get ready for bed. I got to brush my teeth. You're like, ugh, you know, and as a parent, you're like, no, get your ass inside. But then you got to kind of remember, like, that's like their freedom. Like that's their happy place. And it's awesome, because it could be something totally different. It could be something totally different. It could be sitting at a bar as a parent, right? It could be, you know, in some, you know, insane video game chat room as a kid. You know, it could be anything. And that's our, and so like that's the perfect spot for anyone to be in, is when you're disappointed that it's over. Right? When you're disappointed and you're like, man, I wish I could go longer today, but I got to get back to work. You're happy, right? You're just pissed, right? You got to go live life and have responsibilities, but that's it. And so it is. I think it's a great reminder to have that kid-like love for the sport that we do, because it's a hobby. We don't get paid for it. We pay to do it. We have no pressure besides the pressure we willfully put on ourselves. That's it.
Yeah.
Period. And so remember that when you go out and you train, or when you're, you know, parenting, it's like, you know, it's hard to, you always want to, you know, be better, do better, and have that, but you don't, you know, as a parent, you're like, I try so hard not to project that on Hayden, you know, when he goes, like yesterday, I just sat there and I said, just go out there and have fun. You know, you got a couple of the dads are like, hey man, move your feet. Hey man, do this. I'm like, just let him fucking skate. Because the more he skates, the more he's going to love it. The more he loves, the better it'll do. And that's just it. But it's hard to kind of take your hands off of it and just let it go. And it's hard for us as adults too, to take our hands off ourselves and just kind of let it go and let it flow and enjoy what we do without the calculations and the expectations and the perfect intervals and the perfect TSS. I'm like, man, you just sucked all the joy out of that training session. It was perfect the way it was. And then you just got out your laser pointer and your graph and your spreadsheet and your protractor, and you just went to fucking town on it and ruined it. Like, it was beautiful. It was beautiful like it was. So take your hands off your training, enjoy it, love it. You know, if you find yourself in a rut, get out of it. Figure out a way to get out of it. If you're in a rut in life, figure out a way to take an actionable step out of it and away from it and reduce the stress, right? And to make progress in a way that's going to make yourself happy. Again, happy and healthy. You know, you argue which one comes first, but who the fuck cares? As long as you can be healthy and happy, or happy and healthy, doesn't matter. Because if you got both, you got it going on. So you guys got it going on. We appreciate you listening. We'll see you again later this week. As always, we love you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. If you're looking for coaching for the year of 2023, you're looking to get out of a rut, you don't want to overtrain, you want to be happy and healthy, click on our coaches tab and find the coach that's right for you. And as always, if you need anything from Mike, he's at CrushingIron@gmail.com. Or if you need anything from me specifically, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. Find your freedom.
Find it. See you, dude.
See ya.